Hi, everybody. Really excited to see you today. We are going to start now in just a few minutes. We're waiting for people to join. Looking really excited to share a lot of interesting information with you guys. We are on Zoom to Profit, and we are on the live stream today as a Path to Profit with Yay. We are hosting this live events every third Thursday of the month. And we're really excited to guys have you here. Thank you so much for joining in, and let's get started. I'd like to start off by welcoming you, everybody. My name is Evgenia Alexandrovna Yushkova, or simply Yay, and I'm a fashion business consultant specializing in helping brands scaling profitably by organizing their merchandising, supply chain, and operational processes. Over the years, I worked with brands that started at 5 million, 10 million, and even up to $500 million for retailers who we build private label brands for. And then the single biggest challenge that determines whether they scaled successfully or struggled is how well they optimize their process. Today's session is for high-performing business owners and executives who are ready at already kind of a 10 million mark or plus, and that are really thinking about starting to scale up and be able to really figure out how to do it seamlessly, or potentially you guys already scaling but having some issues and difficulties that hopefully we'll be able to address today on the call. Feel free to bring in your comments, and as well as please ask your questions. I'll try to address them as we go through. If I don't get to your question on the call, I will definitely follow up afterwards. So do also drop in your contact information so that we will be able to get back to you and answer your questions after. Going forward, I just really wanted to tell a little bit about some of the biggest challenges that we're seeing among majority of our clients who are scaling up. And let me know if really resonates with you. If you guys are really seeing that there's an increase of delays, inefficiencies, and bottlenecks, or maybe you are, thinking about integrating some of the systems and the integration is not going right, or implementation is failing, or systems that you integrated properly are really not delivering your expected ROI. If you are also, despite revenue growth, your profitability is not keeping up, then definitely this is going to be a great workshop for you guys. So please stay in and stay tuned. Your team is probably working much harder now, but necessarily is not more efficiently. And if your team is overstretched and you get a lot of complaints that it's too much work, if things are getting complex, things are not communication is failing between your departments, definitely this is going to be for you guys as well. And if you are really invested in the really new tools like ERP, PLM, and WMS, but aren't seeing the ROIs, and especially if you guys are not seeing the implementation going as smoothly or as expected, this is definitely for you, because we'll find out some reasons why that might be happening. Does that sound familiar? Give me guys thumbs up. I'd love to see. Great. I'm seeing lots of thumbs up. So great. Let's just keep going, and hopefully we can unveil some of these potentially reasons. And today we're really going to deep dive in why processes and optimizations is the key to seamless scaling between 10 million to 20 million and beyond. So every $10 million of revenue growth that you are anticipating, you got to think that you might need to step back and really relook at your process efficiencies, because you will have to add potentially additional systems. You will potentially have to add additional team members or resources in order for you to support your scaling business. So that's really critical. So let's dive in how we could be able to really dissect and learn from some of the case studies that we've done with some of our clients. The first question that always comes to mind, why is the same strategies that got me here or got you guys here for the 10 million are not working once we're starting to scale beyond 20 million and beyond? Well, part of the things what's happening is when you're scaling to 10 million, it often happens through hustle, smart merchandising, and smart branding. But going from 10 million to 20 million, that becomes an operational complexity kicks where it kicks in. So what's really happening here, we're seeing that the SKUs, more SKUs, suppliers, and more sales channels are exponentially bringing complexity in operations. Teams operate in silos often. Right around that timing, we kind of started to unveil, because as you were developing, you were probably developing department by department and not necessarily connecting the dots. And so what's happening is that you have teams, from product development, sourcing, inventory, and marketing, and they're all not fully aligned, which is very difficult for then be able to get ourselves to the next 20 million without overstraining the teams and resources and be able to do it efficiently. You also are thinking about like layering the new tools and systems, but if the processes aren't there defined first, the tech solutions will only amplify inefficiencies. This is probably one of the biggest common pitfall that we're seeing among majority of our clients who come in with system implementations that are failing or are not going as smoothly, is that they decided that they need a system. They're going into a discovery and they implementing the system right away after the discovery and identifying the system that they need without really defining what their processes are from end to end and actually optimizing them first. There's a really big misperception that systems will solve the operational problems. Well, in reality, it actually will just amplify the operational problems and efficiencies if they already exist in your process. So unless you have your optimized process, do not start implementing a new system. The system's there just to aid you to make it that optimization to more automated versus having that system to actually solve your problems. About 10 million plus businesses really can't afford, having the big mistakes to be able to really continue in them to grow. So really you need to have a structured operational roadmaps that eliminate redundancies, eliminates the waste of different processes and manual processes, and speeds up the execution that ensures every function aligns with the business objectives. At this stage, business must redefine their processes, document them properly, and optimize efficiency before layering a new system. Very critical, and we're going to talk about a little more why this is actually important and happening later on in our conversations. Otherwise, you're going to risk amplifying inefficiencies instead of solving them, like I mentioned before. I'm having the questions coming. Thank you, guys, for sending your questions. Absolutely love receiving them. I got a question asking us, if we already documented our processes, why do we need to redefine them? This is a fantastic question. And really, you're absolutely right. A lot of times when we created processes or departments, we had them to create SOPs, right, which is standard operating procedures. But because a lot of those processes were written in a silo or they were written around one department, what happens often, it becomes like a patchwork. So then you are no longer one seamless process from end to end and be able to really identify where the transitions have to happen and how we can optimize them. So, while you're having the SOPs have been documented, it doesn't mean that you have an optimized process. You really need to think about a process mapping it, so that you can visually see all the touch points as well as all the steps and processes and going as granularly as possible, because you can really then reveal the bottlenecks. And then afterwards, we are analyzing that process and we're trying to remove everything that's a non-value added steps, which is really a wasteful steps within our process. Once we remove them, and typically on average, we are seeing between 30 to 40% of the existing processes have those non-value added processes, right, steps. So once we remove them, then we are left with something that is value added, that is absolutely, and also what's essential, potentially essential for a business, or potentially is required to have if you are creating product that has a lot of requirements from the government and so forth. So that's when we start to redesign the process, right? Or optimize the process. And once we have that portion, that's when we start to identify where the system that we're about to implement is going to come in and aid us to really be able to be successful, even more efficient, or potentially optimized. So hopefully this answers your question. Give me thumbs ups if it does. Otherwise, I can definitely dive in a little bit more. Great, I got thumbs up. Thank you so much. So now, oh, great, another just question came in. What's the first thing we should look at when they're redefining a workflow? Really great question. Start with where the delays and errors occurred most frequently. So talk to your teams, and don't just talk to the managers of the teams or the supervisors. Go down to the actual process owners, the people who actually use the process day to day, and find out, where those most delays are actually happening, or where the potential inefficiencies that they're seeing. And then typically what you're going to see, the inventory management, purchasing, and fulfillment are going to be probably one of your top primary places where you can definitely find inefficiencies and be able to optimize them before you start bringing in the new system. One of the things I really want to explain a little bit more in depth, as I promised, is why layering any type of a new system, especially ERP and PLM, without a strong foundation creates more problems. One of the most common mistakes that we're seeing is brands that are rushing to implement the PLM systems, especially before optimizing their processes. If you're not sure what a PLM system is, it's a product lifestyle management software that allows you to help. And it's a really great, powerful tool, and it really helps you to centralize the product development, tech packs, approvals, materials, cost sheets, and supplier collaborations. But if your internal processes aren't really streamlined first, the PLM will not fix your inefficiencies there. It will actually just expose them, and it will add extra frustrations within your teams, and potentially those implementations will fail. So I'd love to kind of share with you guys one of our clients that we have worked with and helped them, even though everybody's under, and do not disclose, I cannot really disclose their names, but they are on the NDAs. But I'd like to just share the story overall, because I think it's going to be very applicable to a lot of you guys, especially the ones that are you guys, if you are on the Shopify kind of in direct to consumer storefronts, this is going to be very relevant to you, because this actually happens more often than we think. Our client was at about $12 million. It was a fashion brand, and who decided that they're going to implement the PLM, but they did not optimize their workflow first. And so what happened was that the brand was using the Shopify for inventory management on the back end, and their entire product development and BOM, which is the billing of material, were tracking processes, was managed in Excel and emails, which is, again, often happens, and there's nothing wrong with it, especially when we are just starting and we're slowly scaling up. And if right about up to 10 million, it potentially still will work. Not efficiently, but it will work. But right after you start that threshold of 10 million and up is when you really start to think about, how can I actually automate a lot of these things and streamline? Because that's when the inefficiency starts to break, because just of the sheer volume of work that you'll have to be able to process in order to support your growth. Material sourcing, supplier communications, and designs revision lack a central system, which is leading to revision control issues, in contrast to kind of going back and forth. And that's where a lot of miscommunications, or we lose the critical information, especially when it comes to costing breakdowns, lead times, and approvals were tracked while they were tracked manually, which really will result a lot in delays and miscommunication across departments. What were the solutions that we have obviously, have revealed, was to implement into PLM system to really help to centralize the product development process. But instead of fixing the issues, instead of fixing the issues with a just PLM system, what we first end up doing is actually taking their complete process from the idea phase of where they are originating the product and kind of product research and development, and all the way through to when the product is actually going into production and then afterwards ready to ship. And we end up mapping the end-to-end process and being able to truly identify where those touch points or emails constantly going back and forth and we are happening, and where the delays are happening. So then we did process value evaluating process map, and we conducted that. A lot of these steps were actually are redundant. And a lot of the times the flow, even within the Excel sheets or templates that were created, they were either not getting to the right people or not getting to the right people in time, or not getting updated everywhere so that everyone able to see it, because they were updated and then sent out into the emails to kind of letting people know that it's been updated while it's we're sitting in their drop boxes. So that part was really critical to identify. The other thing is we also looked at how the data flows and where the critical points where the data is supposed to originate in terms of the style creation, the attributes for the styles that we wanted to collect, and then how did we want them to flow seamlessly into the ERP and PIM for that, so that they could be able to then put it online and of course optimize all the listings and collect the data and then bring it back into then data depository. So one of the things we also looked, which was kind of a material costing and the bombs. So be able to really prepare a better tech packs and have it centralized so that the vendor can actually come into the system, pick it up, instead of, again, eliminating those emails back and forth. So that was a really huge plus as well, that we've identified while we were doing their processes that needs to be automated. So once we were able to kind of really optimize the process through the process flow map and process evaluation, then that's when we identified and flagged where the system, the PLM system, will actually solve and automate some of those things and eliminate some of those manual communications. That's what we then took into our discovery to make sure that we find a PLM system that does exactly what we need. But not only we wanted to look at the PLM systems from, hey, it's going to address our immediate needs and help us to get to next 20 million. We also looked at the PLM system that will allow us to actually grow with it, at least up to 100 million, until we're actually going to start, or again, reevaluating whether we need maybe potentially a different system, or potentially get more modules within that system to be able to support our potential growth after the 100 mil. So what we end up really picking up is a PLM system that was modular, so that we could address and turn on the modules that we immediately needed in order for us to solve for the process. But then there were modules still left for us to implement as we were growing, so that as the brand grew, the system was able to support them without them actually trying to then switch another system or circuit, which is also very costly and not a great way of doing it from the very beginning. You really want to think about, how can I solve my problems now? And at the same time, how can I be able to then scale up within the same system as well? The other thing we really looked at is standardizing their bill of material creations and standardizing their material tracking and supplier onboarding, which that was another big piece that was done manually and inconsistently. Some suppliers got their onboarding documents and their vendor manuals, some did not. So, which of course at that cost with the issues of that the packaging was not right, or the shipping was not right, or something else that was not right, that what was really critical for them to receive from the supplier in order for them to be successful with their products. So what we did is we built a structured process on how the materials and cost sheets should be created. We created templates within the PLM so that everything is standardized. We were able to then train the staff of how to use the templates with the formulas, what the margins should have been, so that they could be able to truly track. And that information was seamlessly would actually go into the ERP system which allows the purchasing departments to cut the POs with the right pricing. Everything's been updated live so that if it's updated and there's only one sense of truth, source of truth. So once we're updating it in, let's say PLM, then it would update everywhere, including the ERP, so that we always looked at the actual latest costing that was negotiated, which really helped also the financial teams to be able to get their invoicing right, as well as making sure that everything is matching from the PO, which is that where the three-way match really helped to improve that process as well, which, so as you could see, even though we were trying to really improve the product development, and it really in the design and product development processes and departments, we actually end up touching a lot of the processes that helped to do streamline things that are down the line as you are starting to get your product in production, and then later on logistics, and then even billings. So this is definitely was an incredibly great experience and the tool, but it really allowed, first of all, when we did the optimization of the process, what it really helped us is to cut down the implementation by almost 60% of the time that was initially quoted by during the discovery that they've done prior hiring us and starting the implementation of the system that they initially picked. They also, overall, the system and the processes overall optimized helped us to reduce sampling lead times by almost 30%. By just standardizing their supplier onboarding. So we were able to get the information that was necessary for our product development teams really much quicker. It was all standardized. We did not no longer had to email back and forth. The suppliers were actually going straight into the portal. They were picking up the tech packs. They were communicating the changes. So just that alone saved us 30% of efficiency. Costing and BOM accuracy improved as well overall, which has eliminated the discrepancies between the finance and the product team, which, as I mentioned earlier, which is also a really critical step. And then really when we were choosing their PLM system, we wanted to make sure that it seamlessly integrates with ERP. So now, not all ERP systems can seamlessly integrate with other systems. So if you are still in the process of onboarding ERP system, usually by now you should already have an ERP system. But if you're still kind of onboarding, that should be something you want to keep in mind as well. But whether you're implementing ERP or PLM systems, start with your process first. And ensure that it will be able to seamlessly scale for, up to at least another 100 to 100 million in total, so that before you're really going to need to step back and look at your complete redesign of your tech stack potentially once you go 100 million and up. One of the things they have learned as well, as for the part of working with us, is that we really simplified the implementation when we are first optimize the process. And they wouldn't have the digitized efficiencies that we were able to solve with the PLM unless we did the optimization of that process. Otherwise, they would have not even had an opportunity to really fully explore and utilize all the tools that, for example, a PLM system has, and be able to really address the needs for what their process is. And really, we help them to streamline the workflow so that they understand how that PLM could rather actually enhance their process and operations versus exposing more issues. Great questions that are coming in. Thank you again for everybody who are sending the questions in. Please continue to do so. One of the questions that just came in, how do we know if we need PLM or the ERP system or both? Great question. PLM system, once again, it's a product development, BOMs, material tracking, where the ERP system is for inventory, purchasing, and finance, and order fulfillment. It's often used. And if you need to track like the raw materials and samples and product development, and you're starting to really have many suppliers that you're trying to work with, you want to streamline your production process. You also want to potentially create work in progress reports. You have calendars and timelines that you could be able to truly track your complete product development process from the beginning of the design all the way through when it's ready to go into production, then you definitely need a PLM system. Now, if you are really looking at helping you to streamline your order and processing, managing your supply chain, your fulfillment, your billing, your invoicing, that's when you really need the ERP system. They do typically work hand to hand. What you will see that you will most likely get the ERP system first, because that's really essential to run a business successfully. And at the same time, after once you are kind of at that 10 million and up is where we really highly recommend to start thinking about a PLM system as well. Hopefully this answers your question. Give me a thumbs up if it does. Great, thank you. I got a thumbs up. Thank you so much, really, for sending you guys questions. Great, another question just came in. Whether we are, why is writing SOPs not considered process optimization? Oh my goodness, this is a fantastic question that just came in. Thank you so much for asking this question, because we get this a lot. When we start to work with the kind of businesses that are right around that 10 to 20 million, and we start to ask about how their implementations going, what systems are they kind of working with? And a lot of times when we ask the question, well, have you ever mapped out your end-to-end process and optimized before you discovered and brought up in the system? What we actually get a lot of times, yes, we had made all of our departments create SOPs, which is this, standard operating procedure documents, and that we haven't. So yes, that is not the process map. That is not what you're going to use for your process optimization. SOPs typically are done after your process is optimized, and now you're trying to capture within each department each process step so that you could be able to pass it on and train your staff for them to be able to follow like a guide, right? So you cannot use that guide, especially of your inefficient process, to be able to really see holistically from, kind of step back and holistically see all of your processes and the connecting points, because you are going to be reading a lot of multi-page documents, and it's almost impossible to really capture with with just a snapshot of every little touch point in every process that you have. So that is not a process map. That is not what you use to optimize your process. So what you typically would want to do is sit down with your teams, making sure that it's not just, like I mentioned, the managers or directors that are sitting in this room. It has to be people who actually uses the process. You don't want to do this in a silo. Now, yes, you can map out the process initially for each department, or have each department map it out. But then at some point, you have to bring all of them into the room and connect the dots. And the reason why you need to connect it so that you can see where the touch points and where the passing of information or data or anything else is happening, so that you're going to find out how efficient or inefficient it is. Majority of times you're going to discover that it's completely inefficient, and that you have a lot of redundancies where one department is doing the exact same thing as the other department, or they're not receiving the information and one system is not flowing the information the right way, so they have to re-enter it. You're going to see that, and it's going to happen more often than you think. We see this all the time. So hopefully that answered the question. Great, I got a thumbs up. Thank you very much for asking that question. Fantastic question. Well, let's continue. I wanted to also talk about, how the process first thinking, it really improves the execution and the speed, reduces the cost, and really boosts the efficiency. So one of the biggest thing that I always love to think about is, every minute that you save for your teams equals your dollars that you're gaining, right? Because the time costs money, and resources are going to be very costly as well. So your goal is, how can I do more with less? So this is why I love to use the YAY method, which is based on Lean Six Sigma approach, really to scale your business and really be able to optimize your processes. And so first of the things that I mentioned earlier, the way that the step one would be is to really identify every step and input and the decision point through a process map. And process map you can create in multiple different tools that you could use, but really start mapping your entire workflow. Doing it end to end is the most critical way of doing it. So you're going to start from product development. I would, actually from product design even, then going into the product development and the inventory to fulfillment, and really be able to capture all of the process itself. Document who does what, meaning you will probably create a process map in swim lanes so that you are able to really see at which swim lane, whether it's department or a role that is actually doing each step, so that you could see the efficiency of the resources as well within the department. So understanding whether you need more resources, or you can automate, or you can need less resources, which that will help you also to be able to save on costs and increase your profitability overall. Once we identified the bottlenecks, we identified the redundant approval processes, we are identifying any other inefficiencies and delays. Listen to your staff, because they will tell you. A lot of the times they actually will express it over and over again, but we tend to run at 100 miles an hour, and we just don't pay attention to a lot of times to what is actually said by the process users. So that is why it's critical to have them in the room, keep a very open communication, let people actually bring their input and not be afraid to speak up. So once what that is done, we look at then the process optimization begins. We look for how we can cut waste. How we can cut, and reduce the steps that are taking us to, or touch points that taking us from the beginning till the end of the product life cycle. And as well as the standardized workflow. We want to remove unnecessary approval steps as number one. Does every PO really need 4 or 5 approvals and signatures? So also thinking about, who giving a little more accountability for your resource partners, but also giving them the tools they need in order for them to be able to actually make the right decision. Automate low value repetitive tasks, which also anytime there is a step that is identifies that there has to be an email sent, that is definitely something you want to think about how that could be optimized, whether that's through vendor portal, whether that's through other potentially tools, or within PLM, like I mentioned, a lot of the things that you can do and pass on. Those are the things you can definitely eliminate very easily, and that's causing you inefficiencies and delays for sure. And really then after we are before we start cutting down everything and optimizing, you want to also set clear KPIs and really make sure that whatever we optimize, we can measure towards those KPIs. And your KPIs could be different, whether you're trying to reduce lead times, or you are trying to reduce the amount of inventory that's come in, because you might be relooking at the process of production and supply chain. Or potentially you might want to find a way how your team doesn't over design or over assort, in thinking about the smart merchandising as well. So those could be a great tools that could be as well discovered within this process here. And then once we optimize the process, obviously you have to remap the new optimized process. You want to test it first. So take a small subset and really test for, whether it's a couple of weeks or you dedicate a month to test to make sure everything is actually working smoothly, and didn't create any other inefficiencies that potentially maybe you didn't think of at that particular moment. And once that test passes, that's when you want to layer in the system. This is when you start going into discovery, because now you actually have what you need in terms of for the requirements for the system to solve in where those inefficiencies, to solve for those automations that we're trying to solve those inefficiencies. So that's something very critical, again, to think about as we are building this up. So hopefully this really gives you and prompts some ideas, but I'd like to share with you guys one of our, another example, and kind of who we've really one of our clients that we worked with, and really how to show power, to show you really how it's powerful, we're just talking about in the real case scenario, right? So our client was about 15 million, again, fashion brand that did women's apparel, and extending it into the internet. They were planning to extend into international markets, and they needed an ERP system, but they're still kind of relied on the Shopify for inventory and Excel for POs and the SKU tracking. So mind-boggling how they got to 15 million by doing all that, but kudos to them. They were a really great team. They worked really well tightly together. So number one things that we kind of came in and to help them, to consult with them, we first wanted to identify really the initial problems that they ran into, which one of the things was they wanted to implement the ERP system, and they went through the discovery phase, but the integration is estimated by the ERP system teams that it's going to take about 12 months or so, which was way too long for what they were trying to do, because their goal was to scale up to about 30 million by the following year. The system selection was also rushed without fully mapping the existing workflow. And they also assumed that the ERP implementation would really fix the operational inefficiencies. And instead of it, they were actually exposing more inefficiencies than they even thought that they have. And so even though they did so well up to this point, there are still things that kind of snowballed that they've never really addressed, because they were going at 100 miles an hour, and a lot of times they were just solving symptoms. They never actually dived in to solve the root cause of some of those delays and inefficiencies. So like I mentioned, what the first thing we've done with them, same as I've mentioned earlier, we mapped out their full inventory, purchasing, and SKU management workflows. So those are the three things that we worked on and focused on, because that's what the ERP system would really help to solve those for those particular processes. Then we eliminated the redundant steps by like I mentioned, by doing the process map analysis, and we identified each step. Now, it wasn't us who identified it. We worked with the client and their team, their cross-function teams, to really identify in a collaborative way which out of those steps were really adding the value to the customer, to getting the product fast and to getting everything accurate and efficiently, which one was really required for them to have, because they did have some regulations that they had to make sure that the QA, it passes the QA in a certain way. There's certain triggers that had to happen in order for them to be able to release the shipments and receive the shipments into the United States. And then after that, we identified everything that was really non-value added, which was one of the first ones was SKU tracking. They were doing it manually, which with the ERP system especially, we can actually automate that, right? To track what's happening with your SKU, to track where where it is before we're receiving it. So that all can be automated. It does not need to be manually tracked, and that's where we see a lot of the delays as well. Aligned inventory and the fulfillment process across the departments. That was the other solution that we wanted to bring into the table, because they did work in silos in the terms of how they created their processes, because they did create their process and departments, one after another, but they really never connected the dots. And then identified, that they also need the PLM systems for their future growth. They did not think they need a PLM, but once we mapped everything out, we identified that there's definitely a need for the PLM. And so one of the things we end up doing for them, we actually chose an ERP that had a built-in PLM functions. They were limited, but they were sufficient enough for us to be able to sustain their growth to the next year and following years. And it allowed them to actually scale up to 80 million before they actually brought in a full PLM system stack. So that's when we were able to get them from the beginning point, to give them the system that was a great foundation for them to be able to build on and grow their business. But because we were working with the ERP that also was modular and it was actually integratable with most of the PLM systems. So we chose that ERP system specifically. And when we were discovering the ERP system, that was our number one requirement, that whatever the ERP system we're going to take, it has to be seamlessly integratable to most PLM systems, because at that time we weren't sure what PLM system we will actually go with, because that was a 4-year down the line projection. But then we end up actually making sure that whatever the system is, that it actually will integrate. There are a lot of ERP systems out there that are not as robust. Many of them might say that they're all integratable, but the question is how. Whether it's an integration that's a seamless integration versus integration that requires a lot of coding and a lot of redundancy on a lot of build on the back end, which is definitely going to add more frustrations, and it will never work as seamlessly as you would hope. So the ERP system time, we actually were able to implement the ERP system in 6 months, which is 50% lower than what they were initially quoted. We also achieved faster SKU tracking and improved fulfillment accuracy, and we reduced their inventory discrepancy, which that was a huge win for them because it allowed them to save almost 6 figures in cost by selecting just the right system in the first time. Just thinking about how much money and time and resources are usually wasted by a lot of our clients who are coming in, who started implementation or choosing the systems prior working with us without having the process optimized. There are a lot of times failing into implementation and wasting, months and months worth of resources and time that was spent in discoveries, in trying to implement, and then at the end of the day, it all fails. So, we all started to wrap up our chat today. I'm really excited that you guys are all joining in. It seems like our community is growing. Please do feel free to continue sending questions in the comments when we are going to post this video so that I can continue to be able to address them. Do share your contact information as well. That would be lovely. And just to close it off really quickly, a question came in. This is a really great question. I would love to tell everybody about it as well. What is the best way to choose ERP system that won't become outdated from 3 to 5 years? Fantastic question. And again, just pick a modular cloud-based solution that can integrate with the future PLM and WMS systems and analytical tools. Something that can integrate really seamlessly and easy. So that would be a best way to do this. And when you are working on a modular type of systems and softwares, it allows you to then custom build as well as and add different functionalities or turn on and off functionalities as you need them. So that's what's going to help you to stay ahead of your growth so that you are able to then sustain your growth. But every 10 million that you are growing, you need to step back and look at your complete end-to-end process and re-optimize. Believe it or not, even the most optimized processes within just anticipation of growth and sheer amount of time and the resources that are coming in, and you're trying to chase the demand, it end up actually still becomes inefficient at one point or the other. So you do need to always constantly revisit and be able to continue to fine tune and optimize. That's how you're going to help to sustain your growth. Hopefully this really was helpful, and I'm getting a lot of thank yous and thumbs up. So this is fantastic. Thank you guys. I'm glad to be able to be here, provide the value. I would like to leave you guys with something that, I would love some action plan for all of you guys who are on the call, is to really list your top 3 bottlenecks, where the delays happen the most, and map out your current workflow. And then from there, identify the quick wins. And then once you did optimize it, then of course you want to document and set your KPIs. So I'd love to see how that was, how successful that was. And if anyone would like to have a discovery call with me, there's a link below and in the comments and description as well for you to be able to book a call with me directly. It's absolutely free. I'd love to just, to kind of discover what you guys are going through the challenges and hopefully be able to help you address them. I am trying to provide value on every call. So don't afraid to book it. And at the same time, I also would like to let you guys know we do have a process optimization starter package. It's regularly usually about 4,500 and up. Now, if you do mention, when you do reach out to us, if you do mention this call, this live call that you guys listened and been here, we are going to offer almost a 60% discount. So that would be a really great way for you guys to start. So let me know, make sure that you do mention this live recording or leave this live, the name of this live event, and we will definitely be able to add that discount for you guys as well. And what that includes is the full process audit, because I'm getting some questions asking what that includes. So full process audit, really identifying your bottlenecks and efficiencies with your team. So it is usually a first kind of a Kaizen event with your teams, and can go anywhere up to 3 to 5 hours. And then from there, we also do some, we ask for some data for you guys to collect some data or give us some data so that we can analyze it and really do a complete audit. It also really helps we give you a customized optimization plan that's tailored roadmap to streamline your workflow. We also help to train your team of how to do it so that you guys could be able to do that continuously afterwards. I am a big believer in continuous improvement. So our goal is not just to execute, but also leave you with the tools and your team to be able to continue doing the same going forward. It also going to give you the actionable recommendation, clear next steps to improve speed, reduce costs, scale efficiency. So this is really going to be a great tool to start, and really great for people for the brands who are growing from about 10 million to 20 million. This could be a really great way to start and help you to really sustain and get to that next step. Really excited to have you guys on this call. Thank you, everybody. Please send your comments and look forward to see you guys next time. It happens on every third Thursday of the month at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can find the topics in our LinkedIn homepage at Yay Designs and Yushkova Designs, so that you could be able to know what topics we're going to discuss going forward. Thank you.